Here's the difference in what lighting can make from this to this. Hey, what's going on everybody? Welcome back to my channel. This video today is about lighting, and it's mostly my lighting setup, and it's to be more informative for people that are getting started out in video. So if you're a little more experienced, this video is probably not for you. I'm going to talk a little bit about the lights I use, why I use them, and the price points, pros and cons of each of them. Now, there are already tons of these videos all around the internet from different creators, but I still get asked in either DMs or in emails almost every week about different equipment I use, so I figured I might as well start building a little database here on YouTube showing some of the equipment that I prefer. So let's get right to it. So whenever starting out in video, especially for interviews or talking headshots, what you guys can't see on camera right now is my big key light that's over here. I'm gonna grab my other camera and show you that. So right here is my big key light that you're seeing on this camera. This is my main key light, and I pretty much use this on every shoot that I've been on. The grid that you're seeing on here right now helps concentrate the light onto my face instead of it spilling out into the background. If I turn off the practicals in the background, Alexa, turn off studio. Okay. This is just what my key light's doing right now. I keep my key light at around 20%, which looks something like this, as opposed to having it blown out at around 100%, which looks kind of like this. Alexa, studio on. Welcome to your studio. Now the main key light I use is called the Aperture 120D, and it by no means is a cheap light. It's about $1,200 Canadian, plus you need to buy an additional $200 to $300 stand because of the weight of it. You need a counterweight on each side so that when you use a boom stand, you can extend it over top of things and basically move it however you want. Some of the cheap alternatives that I use are the Godox SL60Ws. Grab one of those. And as you can see on the front here, there's a mount, and this mounting system is called the Bowens mounting system, and it's pretty universal across most lights that look like this. What it allows you to do is put different types of diffusers on it. This is like a spotlight hood. Or you can mount a diffuser like this, which has a long, wide spread of diffusion, whether this way or this way. This is super helpful for things like product videography, or if you're doing B-roll of certain things that you want to show in your studio. The Godox SL60 can be used as a key light, and it will allow you to mount the diffuser on that I showed you before. They come in only at about $177, but they definitely are not as bright as what the Aperture 120D is, and they're built out of cheaper material, and there's no built-in effects. The other disadvantage to these is that the fan is a little bit noisier than what the Aperture 120D is, so if you are using lots of mics and audio, these won't necessarily work for you. But if you're starting out in YouTube, something like the Godox SL60W or the new Aperture, the 100D. Those come in at around $290 Canadian, I believe, and are a similar build quality to the SL60s, but they are a lot brighter. So the Godox SL60 to be used as a dimmer key light is still one of my favorites in terms of a cheap solution. This little guy here, not necessarily a light I would recommend for anything other than wedding videos, and that's pretty much all I use it for now. It's a great light to use on the dance floor and get those nice flares in between the bride and the groom dancing. But one of the main problems with this light is that it has to be always plugged in. There's no alternative power solutions. And the main problem I have with this light is how hot the surface gets. This top part here, if you could put a little frying pan on, you could legitimately cook an egg. So when you're done shooting for the day and you just want to take that light down and pack it up, you have to wait for it to cool down, and it's not a light that I necessarily recommend for everyday use. These two lights here are just Kneewear panel lights, and they're very cheap and surprisingly bright for the price. I will have to look up the price, but I believe I paid about $200 for each of them. They're bi-colored lights, which means they do not have any RGB spectrum. You can't change any of the colors on them. What I mostly use them for now is practical lights for something like this in the background. Occasionally for product videos, I'll use them and I'll shine them through something like this so I'm not getting any harsh shadows. As you've heard me say a few times, diffusers is probably one of the most important aspects of lighting. There's a time and a place for harsh shadows, but let me show you the difference. So if I shine this light right now on my subject, you see the long shadow, the hard shadow here? If I add diffusion in, that shadow disappears. So with it, without it. And we want more of the soft light than the harsh light. Same thing applies when we're shining it on our face. When you've got a harsh light, it doesn't look as appealing, but if I throw some diffusion in front of it, now we get a much softer looking light on my face. So buying a key light and adding diffusion is super important. Moving right along into the more portable lights, most of those ones I talked about before sit in my studio or come on me with bigger shoots, but not for run and gun shoots. For run and gun shoots, this is my all-time favorite light. It's the Aperture MC. These are only about 130 bucks Canadian. These lights are super bright and also have RGB built into them, as well as other effects like lightning, paparazzi, police lights, strobe, all that kind of stuff. It also comes with a little diffuser that you can put inside, and it actually sits a little bit off of the light, which allows for that soft light look that I was talking about before. So on Zoom calls, I'll often stick one or two of these off to the side of me, typically from the left side, casting a little shadow across my face to give me some Brant lighting over here. As I mentioned before too, these are RGB lights, which means you can change the HSI. So you can change this to pretty much any color, whether you connect it to your phone and dial in the exact color you want, or just using the knobs and controls on the light itself. These are especially great for using them as practical lights in the background. I'll actually turn this one on here that I forgot to do before. So as you can see right here, it's just giving that extra little bit of background, creating depth between me as the subject and the background. Since these come in at such a cheap price point, I think they're one of the best in the market. You can stick these onto pretty much any magnetic surface, which makes them great for overhead rigs. These also charge by USB-C, so you don't need to have any interchangeable batteries, which makes them easy to chuck in your bag and bring on pretty much any shoot. These are highly recommended by more content creators than just myself and videographers. This is actually one of the first lights that I bought. It's got a horseshoe mount, so you can put it on the top of your camera if you're doing run and gun shoots and are running through a dark alley or something like that. The problem with them is you always need to have these NPF Sony batteries to power them, and they're also only bicolor, meaning you can only get this orange hue, or the white hue. They're pretty bright and also do come with a front panel diffuser, and you can stick a gel inside in the middle to change the color if you want as well. Personally, this doesn't come on any shoots and mostly is just sitting around the office now. It's not the most practical light, and it's quite a bit bigger than the Aperture MCs, as you can see here. The Aperture MCs are the size of a credit card, whereas this is even a little bit wider than my phone. An absolute other favorite light of mine are tube lights, and I decided to go with the Luxio tube light because it's waterproof. I can jump in the pool with this and do underwater photography, videos. Most of the time I'm just using it as a practical light or to change the background color like this. These also have built-in effects, like your cop car effect, lightning, but most of the time I'll just stick it off in the corner and use it as a hair light. Since I have my key light over here on this side, often the other side needs some form of fill, whether that's just using a white piece of foam core or using something like a hair light off in the background. So if I turn off most of the practical lights, so right now you can see this part of my face has a lot of light, but this side just needs a little bit of fill light or some type of color. I don't know if I have it on a proper angle right now, but I should have a little bit of an outline here on my shoulders and a little bit of fill on my face now. These come in the 2.5 foot long, which is what I have, as well as about half the size. And these are fantastic for things like long exposure photography and videography. And like I mentioned before, because they're waterproof, you can shoot in the rain with them, have multiple colors, use them as a backdrop, or if you're shooting a short film, using something like the police effects. As you can see, there are so many lights on the market at the moment, and these are just the ones that I currently prefer and that I've been using for quite a while. If you're just starting out, something like the Godox SL60W or even the Aperture 100D, depending on your budget, are fantastic lights for a key light, such as the one that's sitting up here. Don't forget, you're going to need to purchase some form of stand and some type of diffusion, whether that's something like the Light Dome Mini 2 or the Light Dome. So Something again like these diffusers can also be used for key lighting, especially if you're doing something just like YouTube and don't need a fully professional setup like for a paying client interview. If you want an even cheaper solution, buying something like this is just a Kneewear diffusion on Amazon, and I think it was about 40 or 50 bucks. So jumping back into a studio setting, there's a few ways you can do this. There's 1 light setups, 2 light setups, 3 light setups, and pretty much anything after that. The most common that I've seen are typically 3 light setups, and that involves the key light that you have here shining on your subject, a hair light or some form of fill that's going to fill in a little bit of the side of the face, and then practical lights in the background. So as you can see, I have a key light, I have 2 practical lights here, a 3rd practical light, and the LED strips up here are also acting as practical lights. If you're just starting out on YouTube, getting some form of key light and a practical light are the most important. But a practical light can be something just like a lamp, or open Edison bulbs on a string in the background, or fairy lights. You see this commonly all the time. Keep in mind that no matter what light source you get, whether it's super bright or really dim, using some form of diffusion is one of the most key aspects about getting nice soft light on the face. Whether that's buying an expensive diffuser like the light dome, all the way to cheap things like the Kneewear rig, or even cheaper solutions like going to the dollar store and getting a shower curtain. Certain shower curtains actually allow really nice diffusion on the face. Since the diffusers are a real pain to lug around the world, we've actually used the shower curtain technique on a few projects in Africa and other places in the world to help get that nice soft light on the face. Often, a lot of the time, beginners go for a lot of the really cheap solutions that have light bulbs and kind of a diffuser pullover from things like Canadian studios or cowboy studios. But the big problem with those is that the lights are not adjustable. You can't dim them down to 10% or further up to 100%. They sit at 100% and there's no changing that. All the lights that I've listed here today do not use any form of light bulbs and are all either battery operated, plug-in, or they have their own internal rechargeable battery. They're either LED panels like the ones out behind here or similar to this, or they're more of a professional light that doesn't have any light bulbs. Rather than spending 150 bucks on a set of 8 lights that are super cheap and need replacement bulbs, come with cheap stands, cheap diffusers, you're better to increase your budget by just a little bit and get something nicer like the Godox SL60, which then allows you to have different Bowens mounts. As a reminder, these are Bowens mounts. You're better going with something like this that's also interchangeable and allows way more flexibility in terms of controlling the light, rather than getting 5 lights that you're going to grow out of within the first couple months. If you have any more questions about lighting, please let me know in the comments below or shoot me a DM on Instagram, and I'm always happy to help. There'll be a list of the lights below as well as links to them on Amazon. These are not affiliate links. If you took anything away from this video, if you found that there was anything valuable, please hit like on the video, comment, share the video. It is much appreciated and helps more than you know. Thanks very much, and we'll see you guys in the next video.